Moving on to some other news for now. International law firm Hogan Lovells are denying claims they're involved in covering up serious financial crimes by Sars Commissioner Tom Moyane. Former British Cabinet Minister Peter Hains addressed Britain's House of Lords yesterday, outlining the claims. We're joined now in studio by Lobello. He is from Sars. And Luther, you're here to respond to some of these damning allegations made by Peter Hains. I'm just looking at a transcript of exactly what was said at the House of Lords yesterday. Peter Hains, not mincing his words, calling Tom Moyane corrupt.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. There is no basis to call Commissioner Moyane corrupt. But I think there is a story. Maybe the corrupt thing might be just an emotional best. But I think the issue that gets raised is how we as SARS handle the Mr. Makoko matter. And the Honorable Mr. Hain believes that we kind of colluded with the international law firm Hogan Lovells to kind of cook an outcome, a particular outcome that we preferred. We were, except other platforms, we were called to Parliament twice, and almost the same allegations were raised because they were raised by media houses, and we were asked to explain why we do not believe that these allegations are correct. And maybe just to start, so the issue of Mr. Makoko had 3 legs. So the allegations from the FIC report is that for the last 5 years, Mr. Makoko has deposited suspicious accounts into his account to the amount of 1.7 million for the last 5 years, and some of them were particular bigger numbers. Commissioner Moyane received the report in May, early May, from the FIC, approached the FIC for guidance, because when you receive a report like that, we don't normally receive reports like that. We receive a report like that, we sought guidance, FIC didn't come back to us until June. And then we decided that we'll have to suspend Mr. Makoko, even if FIC is not coming back to us. Mr. Makoko was suspended, as you know, in September. And there were 3 important elements in the terms of reference that we created with Hogan Lovells. We're saying the monies might have 3 problems. The first problem is that we must check whether he has declared them in his taxes. So that's the first thing. So whether there is declaration of taxes. Secondly, whether there is money laundering and or any financial crime. Thirdly, whether in his conduct of doing these money issues, he violated his contract of an employment as an employee between us and him. Now, those are the terms of reference that we put to Hogan Lovells. Further discussions then discovered that, actually it's not even discovered, it's a try. It's obvious that Hogan Lovells cannot investigate the crime because crime is in the purview of the police and the Hawks. So the issue about the police and the Hawks must go to the police. The issue about taxes, Hogan Lovells cannot investigate the taxes. There was an issue about whether only SARS can investigate, whatever, but we concluded that they cannot investigate the taxes. And it was then agreed that we rather pull in the services of an institution that is capable of investigating the taxes, and that was PwC. So PwC was brought on board to investigate the taxes. We went to the police to open a criminal matter against Mr. Makoko. We then informed by the police that the matter has already been referred by FIC, so we don't have to refer it to the FIC. But Hogan Lovells, the only thing that Hogan Lovells has to investigate is whether the 1.7 million rand, which was deposited into Mr. Makoko in 5 years period, violated his employment relationship with us, according to the SARS Act. So what that means is that they take the whole transactions, ask Mr. Makoko to respond to every transaction. So if there was 300,000 rand, they'll say, 3,000 rand, they'll say, tell us where you got the 3,000. Then he answered all those questions. And on the basis of the answering of those questions, they couldn't find a relationship or a misconduct committed by him in as far as SARS and him as employees. Now, they go on and blame them for other things. I think it's unfair because they were not investigating money laundering. So you can't say that they colluded not to investigate money laundering. They were not investigating money laundering. The allegation of money laundering, which was reported by FIC, is with the Hawks. and it's the Hawks that is investigating.
And how far is that investigation?
Look, the last time we checked with them, because what then happened is that we checked with them twice. When we went to Parliament, Parliament asked us to check with them. We checked with them, and all they told us was that the matter is in progress. So we checked with them on that one. The one of the PWs who explained to Parliament that because Mr. Makoko, with everything else, he's also a taxpayer who has got confidentiality in his taxes. We unfortunately cannot disclose the outcome of the taxes. But you can be assured.
But surely he's not an ordinary taxpayer.
Yes.
I mean, he works for the tax authority in the country.
And that's why PwC investigate the tax matters. So you can be assured that if tomorrow, like I've been hearing an allegation about some people are going to be arrested, if tomorrow Mr. Makoko gets charged for money laundering, if tomorrow Mr. Makoko is found to have violated his taxes, we'll remove him from the institution. But what we advised illegally by Hogan Lovells and other legal advisors that we got was that you therefore cannot keep him on suspension on the basis of employment relationship because there is a police case, because that violates his rights.
There were these suspicious transactions into his account worth 1.7 million rand.
Yes.
As an ordinary taxpayer, how do we feel about having someone with this type of accusation hanging over his head working in the country's tax authority as the 2IC?
Yeah, okay, I don't know about the 2IC. We've explained that it's not a 2IC. It's not a 2IC. So like I'm saying, you've got three elements. So if people goes to the police and open a case against you.
Now, perhaps just start by answering that question. Someone with suspicious transactions into his account to the tune of 1.7 million rand working at the country's tax authority. How should South Africans feel about having someone like that working at SARS?
No, South Africans must take comfort that the laws of the country dictates us to behave in a particular manner. And what that particular manner is that the police must investigate allegations. Because if you act on the basis of allegations, somebody can go to the police tomorrow and say, Luther, there is this allegation. Does SARS have to suspend me? So what South Africans must take comfort about is that the matter is before the police. We keep on talking to the Hawks to get progress on the matter. And we can commit to South Africans that if there is any commission of an offense, we will act swiftly. That is the comfort that we can give. But we can't say every time when there is an allegation about a senior SARS person who must suspend, then it's not sustainable. It's not fair to them as well.
All right, so the fact that one of the things that Peter Hains also said yesterday is that these suspicious transactions into Magwakwa's account, some of it at least, were made in US dollars. Has SARS been in touch? Is SARS aware of US authorities being part of this investigation, as they have been on the case of state capture in the country?
No, it was Zimbabwean dollars. So it was, money coming from Zimbabwe. It was not, as it could be reported, coming from.
It's very murky, these waters, though, Luther. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, on a face value, if you look at it, the difficulty, we have asked Parliament to help us to release this report. Because we believe that once the report is opened publicly, some of the perceptions will be clear there. And unfortunately, legally we're told that if we release that report, because it's including those FIC reports, we'll be committing a crime. So Parliament is busy working with a process on how can we release this report to the public. Because I'll give you an example that even the money that comes from Zimbabwe was explained. Mr. Magogo's got a family in Zimbabwe, and he explained, it's my family did 1, 2, 3, 4, which I'm not going to get into the details. So I agree with you that when you look at it on that phase, it's very muddy, but there's simple explanation that passes the test of employment relations. Mm-hmm. The police will go further and say, if you are saying my cousin, I'm just giving an example. If my cousin from Zimbabwe give me money, they can even go further into the cousin of Zimbabwe and check where did he get the money. You see, that's the police work. And that is the work that we are waiting for. But Hogan Lovells couldn't go that far because they don't have the criminal rights to investigate that matter that far. I think what we are really calling for and hoping for is that Hawks moves fast on this matter and relieve South Africans of these perceptions. But like I'm saying, people will say, yeah, but keep on suspending him. But it's not sustainable. It's even legally you can't, that every time when somebody raises allegations against someone else, then you suspend that person.
So Luther, when did these allegations first surface? For the very first time, when did these allegations surface?
The allegations surfaced when we received a report from FIC.
When was that?
That was May, around May.
May of 2017?
Yeah. No. May of 2016.
May of 2016. So we're just short of 2 years. Still no answers.
But not from us.
Yeah.
So when we received the matter in May, because we didn't know what to do with the matter, because FIC gives us this report, and we wanted to understand what are the legalities of this process. Then we approached FIC, but by September, after getting all the facts, after being delayed for 3 months, but after getting all the facts, we suspended Mr. Magoko. The hearing ran for almost a year, which we didn't have control, because one of the things we have done, we were deliberate. So we said, given the seniority of Mr. Magoko and given the nature of the matter, you need to really pitch the process at a very, very high level. And that's why we approached Hain Lovels, gave them briefing of what we wanted to do. We asked them, in fact, to get us a senior counsel from...
Let me stop you for just a second there. Okay, so we've been talking throughout this interview about whether Magoko, in fact, violated his Sars contract of employment, right? You said that was one of the terms of reference.
Yes.
The first term of reference that you noted was, did he violate the declaration of his taxes, right? So
yes.
Did SARS need Hain Lovels to come in and investigate whether there was any declaration of taxes violation there? As the tax body, the tax authority in the country, is this not something that SARS can establish by itself?
Yes, but you must appreciate that Mr. Magoko is the head of tax.
Right.
If you were to get SARS to investigate him, you are technically going to have, if you like, people who report to him investigating him. And what the media was going to say today was going to say, but how do you ask the same SARS to investigate this person? That's what we said.
So, I mean, from what you're saying is that there is special treatment given to people, particular people in SARS. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying, given the nature and the importance of the matter and its seniority, we asked PwC, not Hain Lovels. We asked PwC. Why did we ask PwC? PwC is a global organization.
But SARS
that
is
does
the tax
taxes.
authority.
Yes.
But SARS is the tax authority, and if this was an ordinary South African,
yes,
what would be the process there?
No, you have investigated. You have already told me it's not an ordinary South African. It's not an ordinary South African. It's the head of taxes.
As the head, he's getting special treatment.
It's not a special treatment. In fact, he's the one. Let me put it this way, and we're going to tell you this. He raised complaint about that process. He said, why do you want PwC to investigate my taxes? Why don't you investigate our taxes? And then we said, we want this matter to be beyond reproach. And for it to be beyond reproach, let's get an independent firm, because with an independent firm, they'll ask all the questions they want to ask, and we'll provide all the information they must provide. But if it's SARS, if it's internally in SARS, today somebody's going to say who investigated, but he's a junior to Mr. Magoko, he reports to Mr. Magoko, don't you think you'll make favors to Mr. Magoko? So it was purely from us on the basis of making it to be beyond reproach. So it's not a special treatment. In fact, he would have preferred it the other way around. And we preferred that, no. We don't want this matter to be muddied. We want it to be as independent as possible. And unfortunately, that is what we wish South Africans and the media could appreciate, that we have done. I mean, we asked Hain Lovels that get us the best senior counsel from the Bar Council. They got us Mr. Matawi and said Mr. Matawi is the best lawyer. So that shows how we wanted this process to run independently. And by the way, one of the things that Mr. Hain is raising there, he creates an impression of, if you like, a shoddy relationship between Mr. Moyane and Hain Lovels, in particular the chairman. In Parliament, the chairman was asked a question, what is his relationship with Mr. Moyane? He said he met Mr. Moyane for 20 minutes when he was giving them a brief in September, around August, September. And he only met him again when he was giving us a report back. They don't have a relationship, they don't call. I can even give you an example. Even in the investigation of Mr. Magoko, I'm the head of labor relations. I was not even involved in communicating with Hain Lovels, because of the seniority thing that, we are senior both and whatever. My senior manager was the one who was continuously running with Hain Lovels. So we tried everything in our power to make sure that this matter is as independent as possible. But the surety, and we're not undermining the feeling from South Africans to say, but these allegations are very huge and this is a taxman. But we're also saying that we've got laws in this country that protects everyone. If the police come and find something wrong, and that's what you said in Parliament, if the police come and find something wrong, we are going to act on those allegations. But unfortunately now, if we keep on suspending him because there is an allegation with the police, it will be illegal. I mean, it won't be fair to him legally.
But I mean, May this year it'll be 2 years, and still South Africans are not being given the information that in fact Magwakwa has been cleared.
Yeah, you're almost asking me to blame the Hawks. Because like I'm saying that we wish we have control there. If we had control with the Hawks, we'll move faster. And you are right. And that's why, for us, this thing is, if you like, it's a pain for us. We want it to be settled, we want it to complete, but
Luther,
we hope that the Hawks must just
Luther, you know, one of the lines that Peter Hains says in this address he gave to the British House of Lords is that SARS was a once revered tax collection agency. I mean, given the issue of Jonas Magwakwa, the allegations that have surrounded the SARS commissioner himself, Tom Moyane, you talk a lot about perception. What is the perception of SARS now, do you think, in the minds of South Africans? And where to from here?
Yeah, look, the reality and truth, and Mr. Hain might not know, is that SARS is still a revered tax institution, providing good service to South Africans. South Africans are responding very positively to SARS service, and that is showed in our successes. So if you look at our successes without bringing, you know, the whole noise, our successes speaks for itself. We collected $1 trillion twice. We, you know, extracted 26% of the GDP from the GDP, and that work is clean. We're doing great work. But of course, we continue to be worried about these perceptions. And that's why we can't control what people do in their personal lives. You see, we can't control what employees of ENCA do. But how we must be measured is how do we react when allegations are brought to us about our own people. And we are saying when it comes to Mr. Magwakwa, we did everything that humanly possible to become independent and get to the bottom of the matter.
So, Luther, we've been talking for quite a while now, and I've got specialist reporter Karen Morn in my ear, she's been tracking the story of Tom Moyane and SARS for some time now. And one of the questions she's wanting to ask you is that Jonas Magwakwa apparently hasn't touched his salary in years. His expenses were through the roof, though. All of those expenses were covered without touching his salary. I mean, how is this something that SARS has not looked into?
I mean, you know, in future, in future, I'll want Karen to be here so that we have a conversation. Obviously, it's an unfair question to us as SARS. We don't know what people do with their salaries. We pay people salaries every month on the 15th. We don't know what they're doing with their salaries.
But when your expenses outweigh so far what you're actually earning, I mean, at the end of the year when we do our tax returns, is that not something that perhaps will ping on SARS?
No. Is she saying Mr. Magwakwa doesn't touch his salary?
That's what she's saying.
I don't know about that. But that will be completely unusual. And I'm calling on her that if she has got that information, can she send it to SARS by close of business today? If she has that information. I find it very unusual.
So on the face of
it will be wrong. On the face of it will be impossible, actually. If you are working 9 hours in a company, you get a salary on the 15th, you don't touch that salary, and you've got other lives. It's very, very funny. But I'm saying if he has got that information, if he can send it to us, it will even help us maybe to do other things. And I'll even suggest that because the Hawks is busy with the matter, she'll also be advised that if she can send that to the Hawks, just to show them that there's something not right.
All right, apparently this was published by the Daily Maverick's Paulie van Wyk, the investigative journalist who's been working on the story of state capture for some time now. And at the time, she had detailed bank statements to prove this, to back it up.
I read an article of Paulie on that matter. And her article was not about that. Her article was saying, if there's the one that I read, was saying that he is spending more than his salary. That was his story. So his story was like, this man gets 100 rands, but he spends 120 rands. How can a person who manages his finances like that be entrusted with running a tax institution? That was the argument. So the one about not touching the salary, I'm hearing it for the first time. Mm-hmm. The other one I hear. But you see, I don't know how you spend your money. There are people who live on overdraft. There are people in SARS who, some of them, and not even in SARS, in South Africa, who are on garnishing orders and all that. To do that to them and start to say, how do we think you can be a good journalist or you can be a good banker? is another conversation. But SARS cannot go and say, because we see that you're spending more than what you earn, we'll charge you. We can't do that.
But of course,
so it was just her opinion, which I read and I appreciated. But if you are saying he gets his salary on the 15th, he doesn't touch it, but he's got a life, he's got a house, you've got cars, that on its own is broad suspicion.
I mean, Luther, is it unfair in some way that you're sitting here as SARS Group Executive for Employment Relations? Should we not perhaps have Tom Moyane himself sitting here next to us answering these questions, as well as Jonas Magwakwa?
No, not quite. I'm interimly the head of media. As you are saying, Sandile is busy with the memorial service, and I come and speak on SARS, because the important thing here is it's not who speaks, it's the message. Because they can say the same thing that I'm saying. But the organizations have got people who runs what you call media, have got spokespeople, because spokespeople speaks on behalf of organization. If you're going to have Mr. Moyane speaking here, it's impossible, because then how many interviews do we do per day? But there's nothing wrong. All organizations do that, they send their spokespeople, they don't send their CEOs all the time. So I find there's nothing untoward to me. But the important thing for your listeners and for yourself is, what is SARS' response?
And you're saying SARS is responding in the way that it needs to get to the bottom of the issue, and to resolve it.
Yes, we want to assure South Africans that we are in pain as everybody else to have this matter resolved. It disturbs us like now that we have to leave our offices, run here to come and explain. We're also worried that as these allegations is not getting resolved, it continues to impact on the image of the organization. And we want it to be resolved so that we move on.
All right, well, thanks very much for taking the time to come in and to speak to us on this very important story. Luther Lobello is SARS Group Executive for Employment Relations, joining us in studio. Of course, it's on the back of former British Cabinet Minister Peter Hains saying he has evidence that international law firm Hogan Lovells was complicit in covering up serious financial crimes by, among others, SARS Commissioner Tom Moyane.